Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
So, guys, we are going to have some fun with this one. This is definitely fun stuff. We love, delving into our history and trying to explain to you, what we have received as far as information from our guides and within our own journeys, so to speak, meditatively, inner journeys, as well as show you what some others, have come to understand.
Right. So, everyone has different understandings, and there's a lot of information out there about a lot of things. But it's kind of how do you view it? What do you think about it? And has anything just come to you out of the blue? And it's like, why do I know that? So we kind of like to tinker in these things and see what we can find.
And as we know, that so much of what we're told is disinformation. It's disinformation to keep us locked into a limited mindset, which makes us very, very predictable and controllable. And that's what it's all about. When you have the vast minority controlling the majority, they do that through manipulation of true history facts, things that happen. And they want you to not understand what they understand. Knowledge is power, and they don't want you having the same power that they do.
Oh, no, not at all. It seems like themselves and even their children have vastly different education systems than we do. You can say we as the common folk. We go to school and they give us a free education, and then they teach us certain things to help us be really good batteries for their institutions and keep their stuff moving. But we kind of have a different idea of things.
Yogananda's guru, Sri Yukteswar, wrote this diagram basically giving us the ages, the different ages. We go through the Kali, which is the dark age, a very unenlightened age. Even though we might apparently have very high technology, we're really in a dark age during this time spiritually. There's the ascending and then there's the descending cycles. So we can see, thankfully, the Kali Yuga is the shortest age. Now, we could equate this, if we're talking about consciousness and vibration and density, as being in 3D. This is our time period in 3D. And you could see he thought, Sri Yukteswar was looking at things as like the Industrial Revolution was the end of the Dark Age. But we know that consciousness hasn't quite gotten out of the Dark Age yet. When we look at the power structure on the planet, it's still in there, but it's starting to break. There's cracks in the wall. There's light shining through. So if we're going to look at, truly getting out of this dark age, let's just arbitrarily throw out 2030, then I just drew a couple little lines there to give you an idea of the change in densities. Now, it is also on an individual basis. There are always people that can ascend and escape the 3D, 4D loop, even in the darkest of age. And there are many, as we again have talked about, tens of thousands of Buddhist monks that have ascended. So individuals can ascend at any time, but we're talking about the collective as a whole. Where is the collective's consciousness? There's all different types of beings amongst us right now. Probably in the room that you're in, there's many other beings, many other consciousnesses that more than likely you perhaps can't perceive. Maybe at times you do perceive. You see movement out of the corner of an eye, or a little shimmering or flickering of light, or a shadow goes by. These beings are just on slightly different densities outside of our vision. And we know, what we can see is just a tiny fraction, again, of everything that is there. So when we get out of the dark age, then we step into basically fourth density, which we can see the time frame here in fourth density. And this is when there's other beings that are going to appear all of a sudden to be very, very solid. Why do we have all these myths of, everything from leprechauns and goblins and you name it. Fairies and elves and, so many different types of nature spirits. And we're going to be looking at some other beings that people took to be real, there and very, very visible. And yet they're not there anymore. Where did they all go? Again, when we talked even about the Anunnaki, they were there right amongst the people. When they were here on the planet, they were physically usually in their temples. People saw them. They thought they saw them. Just as if, you could look at your neighbor going across the street. Hey, Joe, just like that. Well, it's because we were on the same density as them then. We will be on the same density as them again. And, that from what we have gotten would be probably more like around the 2040-ish area. That they would appear to be very physical to us once again. They can appear physical to us even right now. And I think actually now is probably a good time to bring up some other things that we have gotten and I keep forgetting to share through channeling. So then when we get to the Golden Age, the Satya Yuga, it's beautiful. That's 5D. So here you have people understanding that every single individual is a cell in something much bigger. Life is respected. Differences are respected. You don't have the constant warfare. It's just a totally different place. We could view it as heaven on earth.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, what's required for us to change densities, to move into different yugas is a large amount of healing of the heart chakra, so that we can understand each other and we can assist each other in growth, assist each other in other kinds of understanding, and really finally acknowledge that the oneness of everything is where it's at. That's where all the magic happens. But to get there, we really have a lot of healing to do, because there's quite a lot of trauma down in that Kali Yuga.
Absolutely. So, and I'm hoping that, I know we always have new people coming in. And so we want to recap, but then we don't want to recap for, so long that every video becomes 2 hours, to cover every single thing that many of you have heard us speak about many, many times. And others speaking about these things as well. So again, this is all relative. There's different beings that we see. When we're in the Golden Age, then now we can reach beings that are very, very enlightened. And this is why we have those quote-unquote mystery teachings, the occult teachings. The things that we learn out in the open in 5D are not discussed out in the open, typically in 3D, unless you want to be burned at the stake as a witch. And again, it's all about control. But these are truths, like understanding that everything is consciousness and that, we can manipulate our reality. Why did they burn the witch? Well, because the witch knew the secrets. This is why. It wasn't that the witch was in, league with the devil. Well, the devil, Satan, the adversary, is basically in control of the system that we are in. So, here we have the devil getting us off chasing those people that are perhaps outside the system and thinking that they are the bad guys, when in reality the devil is just using us to police its own system. The adversary, Satan, is doing that. And again, it's not just a single being, so to speak. This is a system with many different types of beings in this system. As we have said, we've never been alone. There's so many different types of life out there. Life is abundant, and life is abundant even on the planet. And much life that we might not be aware of, unless we start delving into some mythology, some legends, some stories. This is Etidorfa, or End of the Earth, which was written by John Uri Lloyd back in, I think, 1895, somewhere around there. And, I have a copy of this. My original copy disappeared over the years, but I got another copy of it, and it still is available, probably mostly used. It's a fun exploration of inner Earth and beings that are inside the Earth. And it's given as if it's, a story, but is it a real story? Well, it starts off and it feels very, very much like a Christmas story, where the ghosts of Christmas, present, past, and future come and visit and change a person's course and path and expands their mind and their heart chakra. Well, yeah, this is a fascinating, fun book to go through. And yes, those are mushrooms that he's standing next to. And, maybe that aided in making this story, so to speak.
Oh, I think so.
So, interesting humanoid being comes to him and shows him an amazing world inside the earth. And this being doesn't have a face. Humanoid, but doesn't have a face. Very strong as it lifts a metal boat. There are pictures in it too, which are curious to say the least. And unusual experiences with gravity, unusual flora and fauna inside the earth, things that appear to be like dinosaurs and species that went extinct a long time ago, still there inside the earth, and some species that we probably never even dreamed of. All inside the earth, even now. And then, of course, there's your people that feel like secret societies. There's always these secret societies that understand and know, again, the secrets, like we are not alone. We've never been alone. We're not alone on this planet. There are many other civilizations on this planet at the same time, and many things that we see in the skies that we might attribute to extraterrestrials, people that are not from Earth, are actually from Earth. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily Homo sapiens, though.
Right, exactly. And as I'm looking at this guy, and he appears to have no eyeballs, but when I zone in on him, he can see very, very well. He has, I guess you could call it second sight. I guess you could call it first sight, but he works through that one most important eye that's in the middle of his brain.
Yes, the pineal gland, which it's the key to everything. Then, of course, we have the legends of Agartha and Shambhala and Shangri-La. And again, these legends come from all around the globe. They're in the American Southwest. They know that there's beings down inside the earth. And of course, when we look at some of the declassified stuff with these deep underground military bases, they happen to be over or around these areas that always had legends of different beings, and often of a reptilian type.
Right, exactly. So, there's all these stories, but you got to ask yourself, well, where do they come from, and how come we can't go there now? I would love to go there now.
Absolutely. Well, I think some people have gone there in these times. And the technology that lies in some of these places is mind-blowing. Blavatsky talked about the secret masters, and of course Tibet is a place of mystery and intrigue, and the Tibetans talk about the inner earth and the inner earth civilizations. Homo sapiens are not the top of the food chain. We haven't been the top of the food chain, and we've seen that in many of the myths and the legends. There's all sorts, as you see this diagram is talking about Admiral Byrd's flight. Now, Admiral Byrd, boy, he had an interesting life, did he not?
He sure did.
He sure did. He explored both areas, the Arctic and Antarctic, and talked about there being an entrance where you just, you're going, and then all of a sudden, you're up there in the Arctic, and it's cold as can be, and all of a sudden it starts getting warmer. And before you know it, you've actually kind of gone around and you're inside the earth, and you see the mythical, quote-unquote, city of Shambhala. And is it just myth, or is there some truth to this as well? What do we really, really, truly know? Now, we know that there are all sorts of vast spaces that people could inhabit, under the earth, under the surface. We've seen in Turkey, for instance, complexes that could house tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people, and apparently did in times past. And again, it's fascinating to see how they were sealed off from the inside, as if they're fearing something that was on the surface coming down in and looking for them. Mm-hmm. This is just fascinating to get into. And then, of course, we have New Schwabenland and we have the Nazis. Oh, yes. That just opens up a whole can of worms there. As, they were very, very interested in everything occult, everything hidden. This was a passion of Hitler and Himmler and, the rest of the leadership of the Third Reich. And so they went and they created New Schwabenland. And this is declassified. These are facts. They have bases down there on Antarctica. As we see this, in 1943, German Navy Grand Admiral Karl Donitz said, "The German submarine fleet is proud of having built for the Fuhrer in another part of the world a Shangri-La, an impregnable fortress." Yeah, what was he really referring to there? But we see there was all these expeditions. And you got to wonder, too, when Germany lost the war, we've gotten, again, in league with what others have said, that Hitler himself did not commit suicide. That wasn't him. He escaped. He went to South America and spent time in Antarctica as well. And more than likely, I think we got that he died probably in the 1960s is what?
Something there. But he was just too wise of a character to do that. What he needed to do is make sure that people weren't looking for him. People weren't asking about him so that he could do something else.
Absolutely. So, this is all declassified. So many things have been documented about this and their expeditions on down there. And this is actual Nazi map of how to get under Antarctica and to get into the inner earth, and where fresh water actually abounds and it's warm. Mm-hmm. And it's fascinating to see everything that they've given us, because this is again a German representation of the inner earth, and basically a hollow earth, so to speak. Very, very much like what we see, attributed to the drawings based on Admiral Byrd's. And again, there's so much documentation on this. And I'll have all the links for you guys to go and if you want to research it even more. German submarine U-boat 209 made it to our hollow earth. Lake Vostok is interesting, for instance. You can see where this is on Antarctica. Well, we also know, that the western part of Antarctica has been melting more than the eastern, and that's due to all the volcanic activity. Now, the volcanic activity itself could keep things warm under the surface. So even though it looks so foreboding on the surface, might not be the case. And, they've done some drilling and taken some ice samples. And, they found that this lake, for instance, even though it's a very, very, it's in a high location, when you go far enough down, it becomes very much pure, clear water. Probably some of the most pristine water on the planet.
Oh, that's an awesome idea. I love that. You don't find that very often anymore.
Yeah, that's probably one of the less polluted ones, but then you don't know the technologies that they're using down there as well. So, we just wanted to share this with you guys because, again, many people are probably very, very aware of all this, and then others not so much. Or you might have heard a few things about this gentleman, Admiral Byrd. And as you see here, this is a reference from his diary. Talking again, he came right out and he said, he spoke about things like these amazing technologies. Of course, we had Operation High Jump, which was to go track down the Nazis after the war, and they encountered flying saucers, and again, we know the Nazis were building saucers in the 30s. And again, they had made contact with some beings that had technology. And again, it's really the powers that be on the planet, but they just made direct contact with them and were given technologies. And were able to utilize anti-gravity. And, of course, then we had the Battle of Los Angeles, where you had the UFOs over LA, and then we had the UFOs buzzing DC. Again, this was kind of like letting you know our technology is far superior than their technology was far superior than the US's at that point. And Admiral Byrd, with his fleet that went down there, they got their butts kicked to them, and they came limping home, and they did have losses as far as ships and planes too. So, it's fascinating to look at this. At one point he's, again, talking about how they're up there where it's so cold and brutal, and then they see mountains, and they keep going on and see, it's not an illusion. There are mountains. I've never seen this before, and changes altitude only to 2,950 feet, strong turbulence. They go over a mountain range, and then eventually they get to where it's all of a sudden 74 degrees in the Arctic. How could this be? And then they keep going, and then it's getting green outside, and it's just, they're thinking this is impossible, but what's going on?
I know.
Was he tripping? Or did he encounter this? I mean, it seems to me that he has been more forthright than you would expect in sharing out with the public everything that he experienced on both poles.
Right. Well, he was so extremely decorated, and that's why this really caught my eye, because this guy had a lot to lose, but he came out with everything. And it's amazing the information and the detail that he came out with his experiences and his understanding. So, a big thank you to him for opening the door to many people to have this understanding that we're not all alone here. And when you look at this at a certain level, there are entities that walk among us that are hyper aware of these places. They go there, they understand them, but they're also very, very awakened. But they're here in this dark age, but not as many walk the earth as there is when you're like in the golden age. Many more beings are understanding inner earth, or from inner earth. It's just sort of common knowledge. Now, not so much. There's very few that you'll find on the surface, if just very few, that can really give you the deeper knowledge and actually go there.
Absolutely. So let me read you this a little bit about him. So Richard E. Byrd, and he lived from 1888 to 1957, polar explorer, naval officer, pioneer aviator, born October 25th, 1888, Winchester, Virginia, brother of Harry F. Byrd, governor and senator, graduated from U.S. Naval Academy in 1912 and advanced to lieutenant commander at retirement in 1916, later promoted to commander after his flight over North Pole in 1926. Given the rank of Rear Admiral in 1930, during World War I, he entered the aviation service and commanded U.S. Air Forces till Armistice. In World War II, he served with Admiral King in Washington and Nimitz in the Pacific, going overseas 4 times. Highly decorated, including Congressional Medal of Honor in 1926 and Special Congressional Medals in 1930, 37, and 46, made his famous flight over the North Pole on May 9th, 1926 with Floyd Bennett. In 1927, he made a transatlantic flight of 4,200 miles with 3 companions, New York to France. His first Antarctic expedition was in 1928 through 30, his second from 33 to 35. He discovered the Edsel Ford Mountains and the Marie Byrd Land, spent 5 months alone near the South Pole. In 1939, he was made commander of the U.S. Antarctic Service, again went to the South Polar region, discovering 5 new mountain ranges, 5 islands, and more than 100,000 square miles of area. In 1946, he was named commanding officer of the U.S. Navy Antarctic Expedition, and again in 1956, headed the U.S. expedition in Antarctic exploration. became a member of Federal Lodge Number 1, Washington, D.C. on March 19, 1921, and affiliated with Kane Lodge Number 454, New York City, September 18, 1928. He was a member of the National Sojourner, Chapter Number 3 at Washington. He and his pilot, Burnt Balkin, dropped Masonic flags on 2 poles. Interesting. Balkin also added his shrine fez. In the Antarctic expedition of 33 through 35, 60 of 82 members were Freemasons. And on February 5th, 1935, established the first Antarctic Lodge Number 777 of New Zealand Constitution, and he died March 11th, 1957. Curiouser and curiouser.
Oh, it sure does. That's some really good information.
Isn't it? So again, it's all about controlling a knowledge. And when we look to Dagon and Oans, these fish god beings that legends say brought mankind knowledge and taught mankind all sorts of secrets. And they have the Mani purses that the Anunnaki are always shown with. And Cindy got about these purses.
So they're showing me these little bottles of, I'm going to guess there's some type of oils. There's some kind of oil. These entities understood a technology that was very harmonious, and actually this assisted people of a higher mind. It assisted them in their ability to raise their consciousness or expand their consciousness. So this is, when you see that little bag, it's kind of like a medicine man's bag.
Yeah, I think one of the things we have to realize too is just like with any race of beings, you have an extreme. You have, some that are really going to be very much totally about their own thing. Don't get in their way. They just assume push you down an elevator, then ask you to move. And then you have beings all the way on the other side, that will take a fly and catch it and let it go outside because they don't want to harm even a fly or an ant or a spider. So even with these beings that we might classify as some being much more benevolent and some being much more malevolent, you have individuals, just as we do in society today. Now, these again are beings that were thought to bring us a lot of knowledge and teach mankind a lot of things. Now, we got that these are not, as I've seen many people say, that Dagon Oans is Enki. It's not Enki, it's not the Enkiites, but they are a form of what we would call Anunnaki.
Yeah, they are very powerful beings, but they're of a more docile nature, and the intention for them to come to humans is to help them expand their consciousness in the age when this is allowed.
Yeah, but technically they are still basically in with the grouping of what we would call Anunnaki. And this again gets into the myths there. And it's labeling Dagon as a Semitic god of agriculture, crops, and fertility of the land. And again, so many beings that are just beings were worshipped as gods. Mm-hmm. Just that simple. But they're not the creator of the universe. They're not even the creators of a planet. They're fourth density beings. So, again, they're very finite, but at the same time, source is in all of us. So, in that sense, yeah, God is within them like God is within us.
Right. They might be able to portray abilities that we might not understand, and therefore they got that name of a god.
Yeah, and again, in relation to a fish, why? Well, because, for one, there are cities under the sea. Yes. And they had technologies, just like when we see them with wings, it's not that they have wings. And again, when we look at an angel and you see the angel depicted with wings, well, an angel's wings is the Merkaba. It's the light body.
Right, and the Merkaba goes out, kind of at an angle, and one could absolutely perceive those as being wings. As I look at someone's Merkaba, I can see that, and I can see the the need and the desire to go ahead and just call them wings, especially if you're making a drawing or if you're making a painting. It actually comes out to be quite beautiful when you're looking at the Merkaba and how it extends outside of the human body.
Absolutely. And, this is not a perfect representation, but it kind of gives you an idea. And so I'll ask Cindy, because I'll do my standing Qigong meditation. And there's certain postures that we know exactly what they're doing because we could watch, and they're actually growing the light body. So when you do embracing the tree, for instance, that is working on building that Merkaba.
And these are things that are so important right now, building our Merkaba, building our light body. When we have a very strong light body, we have the ability to change things outside of us, even if we're not there. And that's one of the greatest mysteries. And to me, in the universe, is it's a very guarded secret, because they don't want us to understand how important mantras and meditation and these standing poses can be. They can be very powerful tools for consciousness to be able to do things that other people might not be able to do.
Absolutely. So when we're holding it in this position, it works on building the light body. And if you want to do a mantra for building the light body, it Om Mani Padme Om. Om Mani Padme Om. Hum is the last part. That one works on just making you just shine and glow. Your light body just turns right on.
Right. It's about getting that vibration going and using your own voice too. And that's another thing about mantras, and even just doing Om. You want to get that vibration inside of your body, because our voice carries with it a sacred essence that when we use our voice, it expands us in such a way that it's just beautiful. It makes you stronger also in a very physical way too. When your light body is really strong, you can see yourself as kind of I don't know if you guys have ever seen a bug zapper, but the bugs come close to the zapper and it zaps it. Well, if you're out there in the world, you can see yourself as a bug zapper, and this keeps other entities away from you. And I believe strongly that it also keeps people from getting colds and flus and all kinds of things. Because Mike and I, since I've been building mine and since I've known him, he had a sniffle like one time in the last how many years?
Well, I went like 12 years about 12, 13 years without any sort of sickness at all. And this is a very powerful one. Om Mani Padme Hum. And we see here a quote from the Dalai Lama. Thus the 6 syllables mean that in dependence on the practice, which is in indivisible union of method and wisdom, you can transform your impure body, speech, and mind into the pure body, speech, and mind of a Buddha. And again, it's all about the light body. And we can't stress that enough. We look at all these different things, and so, sure, they're interesting, they're fascinating, important, yeah, I guess so, but this is really what's important. This is your ticket to out of the cycle of the 3D 4D existence. It's your ticket outside of the control of the controllers. They can't control you when your light body is activated.
Right. And as we go through these light body activations, we might appear to have certain ailments if we have traumas. And that's why we really strongly suggest we work on healing within first, because as the Kundalini is rising up, if there's blockages, especially in the heart or other traumas, it could create problems with the light body and manifest itself to be something else. So very first thing is the healing, and then the mantras and the meditation, and just really work on that inner post. I look at it as like a kind of a post of light, and you just want that to be strong and solid.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because when you go, you'll find more things that are geared towards authored with the mindset of trying to verify the Bible, and show support for the Bible. So you find so much of it like Bible archaeology. It's all about trying to find stuff that's going to support the biblical narrative, most of it. And then you'll find some that is just the opposite. And again, it's up to everybody to discern. But this particular author, the conclusion on Dagon is this right here. Overall, Dagon is represented somewhat differently than the other gods in the book of Judges. This is because he's linked to the Philistines, who seem to have adopted Dagon very early, who was one of the most hated enemies of Yahweh in Israel. The Philistines represented a more menacing type of threat than the local Canaanites who had inhabited the Promised Land. And that all is very, very fascinating in and of itself. With their political and military organization, the Philistines were a viable threat to wipe out Israel and thwart complete possession of this land, the quote-unquote Promised Land. Their importance is fully seen in that, according to 2 Samuel 5, their defeat was a key to the establishment of Davidic power. Tension between Israel and Philistia began with Samson and encompassed the careers of Samuel and Saul, ended with David. Therefore, based on Dagon's long Semitic history and his connection with the Philistines, it's quite understandable that Dagon should be remembered in such detail by biblical authors. Very, very interesting indeed. We've gotten into that before about, again, how they, when the Israelites came, they just wiped out whole towns, one after another, and, slaughtered, as you saw with the book of Joshua, every man, woman, and child, but yet kept the gold. Again, there's so much more than meets the eye. And of course, very well versed with what everybody is indoctrinated into belief. When people will say, oh, no, you don't understand. It was because of this. Because, no, they were all giants. They were all Nephilim, or they were all, whatever it is they want to give the reason of why genocide was something that happened. And it's never stopped happening. Again, it's because the real rulership of this planet is all about conquest, war. Truly, it's a strong negative Mars type energy that we see with the ruling power structure.
Well, it's like they'll say anything to make these genocides acceptable, so they try to spin it at this angle, spin it at that angle, and I'm sorry, the source of all doesn't openly do that.
No, and again, when people use terms that they know because of their indoctrination, when they talk most high, but they're referencing a being that's only on the fourth density, that's not most high. It's far from it. And in fact, when we're outside of, when we're up in the golden age, we're way above that particular being that's claiming to be most high. Because that being is basically existing down in here. That's a lower fourth density, lower astral plane being and group of beings that claim to be the creators of all, but no, they're not even close to the creators of all. They do have technologies. They can convince people through their doctrines. And again, if we're not going to believe the mainstream media, the lamestream media, how come we keep believing the mainstream media version as far as the religious indoctrinations? It's just pretty evident that, again, that's going to be the control narrative. It's the main narrative out there. And when we see Telos and Mount Shasta, which we enjoyed a good time there, and did come in contact with some of these beings, and their fifth density, and very, very Lemurian.
Yeah, very Lemurian, very strong and powerful, self-assured, meaning the best, wanting to openly help mankind become the best that they can be, and a source of protection to just very solid, good entities, good feeling around that area. Even though there was some spots that didn't feel so good, it was a little bit strange, but for the most part, overall, very, very good thing. And right before we went there, I had this dream that they took me into the mountain and they showed me a lot of things, a lot of technologies that they used, to control outside of this area. So that was really curious. I had that dream. Then we had to go see it, and we did, and it was awesome.
Yeah, it was wonderful, and their energy was really, really nice, even though we could feel there was very much Draco and Gray activity around as well. It was a real well, it was interesting, because you had very, very high vibes, and then you had some areas where it was very, very low vibes. But overall, it's most definitely Shasta's a sacred place, and it was one of our favorite places. When we were in Nevada, so close to the test site, you could feel the Grays, the Draco, all around all the time. So, oh, okay, I don't want to forget. Let me try to remember now. I got so sidetracked because we're covering so many different things here. When we were first, yes. When we're talking all about Antarctica, and we were talking, you guys probably remember, there was a lot of talk about why you had John Kerry, you had the Pope, you had the head of the Eastern Orthodox Church, and you had, who else went down there? I mean, it was like, I think Obama went down there. I mean, I don't even know if the team man went down there or not, but it was like so many people were pulled down there to Antarctica. It was crazy. They did a few photo ops. I've shown some pictures of, the head of the Russian Orthodox Church down there. But the reason why they went down there was because there was a visit from one of the bosses.
Right. This is to note a timeline and note something specific. Things are going to change. So there's certain things that you need to release to start gearing the public toward a kind of control. So basically it was the showing of a timeline, and this is when a lot of things got put into play, and we have what we have going on now that we can't even mention or we get in trouble. So I'll let you guys kind of figure that out. But yeah, it was definitely to make that announcement that, okay, things are changing.
So this was published on March 14th, 2017, because this was a buzz. Why did John Kerry really visit Antarctica on Election Day? Why did the Pope go down there? Why did the head of the Eastern Orthodox Church go down there? All these people went down there. Why? Yeah, so, what we got is that they were being told by an actual Anunnaki that had come. And again, the Anunnaki are residing a little bit higher in density than where we are right now. It's actually very, very close right now. And so they can make themselves physically visible to us. It still takes a little effort, but soon it won't take any effort at all, because we'll be on the exact same playing field, so to speak. So the timelines were given, and they were told how things are going to go down. Again, we know that there's so much pomp, circumstance, and tradition that's all about maintaining the status quo opinion of what's going on. But really, the leadership of this planet is, again, what we would call the Gigi, under the direction of the Anunnaki. And it's carried out, again, by beings that you are at least part Homo sapiens, usually Homo sapien and Gigi hybrids, and, they're family members. So you have certain families that control, apparently control. They're just executing orders. That's it. They just execute orders, and they get orders really from the Bureau.
Right. Yeah. So certain things are now, rolling. Certain things must now come to pass. So it's really interesting that they all made such a ta-da about going down there, but now we kind of understand why.
that was the first time leaders of the Roman Catholic Church, and the Moscow Patriarchate ever met. Amazing. I mean, this was a schism that goes on all the way back to 1054. This is how important it was. And so one of the things that was discussed, it is disgusting, is when the third great conflagration would take place. I was feeling so strongly that they were really considering it. I think the leadership here on Earth was considering it. What would now be, over 5 years ago, we were really close for them to trigger it, but the Anunnaki told them no. They're going to wait another cycle or two as far as like our election cycles and everything. So again, they know the timeline. They know when the Great Flash is coming, and they know when they have to make their appearance and, start to do their acting in person. And, again, they're orchestrating everything from behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, we just got a lot going on right now, and it's time for us to heal ourselves. It's time for us to work on our light bodies so that we don't feel that we are entrapped in any situation in particular.
So just to recapitulate what we have said in some recent videos, just to give you guys info from the guides, there will be at some point in time a great solar flash, and that's what initiates the instantaneous change into another density for everybody. You're either going to end up, not making it and then going back to a 3D life somewhere else, on another 3D planet. From what we've gotten, there could be an aspect of Earth that maintains that for certain beings that don't ascend. The ones that are able to avoid certain things and keep growing spiritually, keep pulling your vibrations higher, you'll find yourself instantaneously basically on a heaven on earth scenario at that point in time. And, again, they are trying to keep as many sheep in the pen. That's what they are doing. Simply put, they're keeping as many sheep in the pen because they don't want to lose their entire flock. So they want people to voluntarily decide to stay with them, and then find yourself still in the same old system, or even kind of worse, where we go back to the old system, where you see the humans with the Anunnaki right next to them, and the humans are, again, hand and neck tied and acting as a slave force out in the open to the Anunnaki quote-unquote gods.
Right. Well, we're very much a fuel source for them, so they don't want to lose that fuel like anyone would want to lose their fuel. They want to hold on to everything they can.
So, this is the timelines that we're looking at. We have time. We absolutely have time. I mean, from what we've seen and what we've gotten, that big flash is still a couple decades away. And, again, when will they be able to physically appear? They could physically appear now, but it takes effort, and it wouldn't be really en masse. But again, as we go into 4D, the first place you go is the lower astral realm, and that's not a nice place, and that's their home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's true.
And thankfully, it's only a temporary thing unless we choose to decide to stay with them, which unfortunately many people are doing, and they're doing it without knowing.
That's the sad part, is they're doing it, and it's through an innocence. They think they're doing the right thing.
And again, especially in these times, the individual can ascend at any time, really. It all depends on your spiritual work, keeping your vibrations high. How do you do that? Well, things like unplugging from the technologies that are pulling you down as much as possible. Grounding, meditation, Qigong, yoga, prioritizing the spiritual side of this, doing things that makes your spirit soar, maybe singing, maybe playing music, maybe writing poetry, being creative, because that's what we're all meant to be, as co-creators in this universe, which is just one universe among countless universes.
Right. Then just Source wants to express itself, so find out what feels good for you to express and do it.
Absolutely, because you have source in you. The true God with the big G is inside you at this very moment, and it wants you to be you.
Yep.
That's the bottom line. That's why there's so many different forms of life. One size doesn't fit all, and one dogma, certainly. There's no need for dogma when all we really have to just follow is that loving compassion. And when we say namaste again, it's recognizing the divine that is embodied in the person that you're looking at across from you. Mm-hmm. And once we do that, then we start to understand we're part of something bigger. It's not competition and survival of the fittest. No, it's pulling each other up.
Absolutely. That's so important. Pull each other up. Help one another in those spots that might be tender. Just be good to yourself and be good to your neighbor.
Absolutely. So thank you guys so much for your support on Patreon and also on Ko-Fi, where you could do a one-time donation to support the channel, or a monthly as well. Do check out evolutionaryenergyarts.com. Anybody that needs to talk to us about activating the Kundalini, clearing your chakras, initiating the light body development, spiritual coaching, Vedic charts, astrology charts, whatever you want to do. You can reach us at evolutionaryenergyarts@gmail.com or EEARTS@protonmail.com. And it was fascinating. I was having problems getting logged into Proton Mail yesterday. I think the powers that be don't like Proton Mail. And so thank you for your patience also with us getting back to you. And then do check out Medicinal Foods. Again, it's all about detoxing from all the poisons and the toxins that are around us in the air, in the food, in the water, and just the frequencies as well. They have lots of products that can help with that. Use coupon code EEA. It gives you a discount, and it does support the channel. As always, guys, be prepared, especially spiritually. Much love. God bless, and namaste.
Namaste.